Hey, it's your boy. And, I'm just going to talk about piracy for a little bit, right? Because I put it on Google, and you see images like this, right? So, things that this has absolutely nothing to do with online piracy. This is piracy of a completely different type of idea. But, you got the skull and this, that, and the other. Right, but forget what Google is trying to throw at you. Let's talk candidly about piracy, right? Because I think there's a greater issue that's going on, and maybe piracy might be the solution. And the issue I'm talking about is censorship. Well, what is censorship? Censorship is, well, in layman's terms, taking, say, an original product, right, and taking things away, taking things out that are not either socially acceptable, acceptable to the censor or the product in which you're trying to sell it. For example, there's this Blizzard developer who's making a game for the Chinese market, right? And he pitches this idea about how, they have elves, but instead of in the woods, they're in the desert, so they're effectively like desert elves. But he has to run this through, say, the Chinese censor, and my man effectively says something along the lines of, elves belong in the forest, and he demanded that he changed it. And this is what I mean by censorship, right? And things like this have happened since the Holy Roman Empire, whenever, you had statues of Venus with the pecker hanging out, but people would cover up the pecker, cover up the boobs, right? And this was, well, I guess their version of censorship. And things like this also happened in the late '90s with certain, you had to run through every single project, every single comic book, every single movie through this evangelical Christian censorship where, the hero always has to win, the villain always has to lose, right? You can't show gratuitous violence, right? And again, things like this is happening to this day. Like nowadays, you can show as much violence in a video game as you want, but it's like, God forbid you show a nip slip, because then some feminist somewhere is gonna cannot sleep at night. It's like they'll have a fucking heart attack in a game where, again, you can blow people's heads off. Like Mortal Kombat 1, perfect example. The reboot. You can literally, you can rip someone's spine out their fucking back and beat them with it. That's A-okay. But God forbid you show an ass cheek, because then people just start convulsing in their fucking sleep, like, oh God, the ass cheek exists. And it's like, this wasn't a thing when I grew up, right? Because you had shows like Battlestar Galactica where they had a whole ass and whole titties hanging out. But it wasn't pornographic, right? It was a TV show for adults. Even another example, you have the SpongeBob episode with the Panty Raid episode. Like, they completely censored that. So if you have the CD with every single one of those episodes, including the two that they've censored, that includes the Panty Raid, 20 years from now, you could probably make thousands of dollars off that CD. And this goes back to my idea of censorship, because you have actual literature texts being censored, like the disclaimer on the boxes or whatever, right? Like, say, To Kill a Mockingbird, right? You have the disclaimers like, oh, well, this includes racism, I have the couple of bad words, and it's like, whatever. But I do believe in that. But now people are trying to change those original texts. People trying to change these things, and it's like, well, if this is your idea, right? You want to change words in a text that's timeless. Like we learned this in school. Well, piracy seems to be the only way to get to preserve the original text of these books. Because again, if they're going to just take things away and change it, I mean that lowers the value. One, the balls of people of these censors thinking they know better than the people that came before them. And man, I'm just coming out with examples left and right. The whole Skullgirl controversy, where the original, like, I don't think there's a single original developer that is still on that project. It's all new people, new developers that know better than them, that know better than you, and all they're doing is censoring shit. They're covering up the characters. They're saying, "Oh, if you like this, you're a pedophile." And it's like, well, I mean, it's a fighting game, right? And people don't play the fighting game beating their cock. And it's like, if this is the attitude you have, right? I feel like piracy is the only way to preserve these original texts and these original games. Because you sure as hell can't keep them in the mainstream without running through the censors, who are, I guess, ideologues now. Because then they'll take things away, they'll change things. Another fucking example, D&D for Hasbro. They take away evil races. They take away slavery as a concept. They lower all other races down to the lowest common denominator. They're effectively just humans that look differently. And if this is the way you want to go about it, then piracy is literally the only way to preserve these texts, to preserve these things. And I think Gabe Newell said it better. Piracy is a accessibility issue, right? And I mean, even certain games are probably going to get censored. I think even certain games have been censored. Like, you have all these remakes and remasters coming out, or they put, good graphics on it, which isn't difficult, but they take things out. They take things away. It's okay to take things away that were, like, bad or hamper the product because, again, of the limitations of the time, you had to have certain things, but nowadays you don't have to do it. But again, to censor things, to take plot points out, to take translations out because it doesn't fit a modern sensibility, it's like, well, I guess I'll just pirate the fucking game if I want the original. And again, man, and I had made a previous video on localizers. This is just a perfect example of running the original text through censors and having them change and move everything around, right? And then the localizers are flipping shit because AI can do their job, do it better. They won't go after the consumer. They won't shit on the product. They won't scream a vagina, so shut up, misogynist. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, and many people for that is moving to the subbed, right? So people are learning Japanese just to get around these people, but now you're finding out that you literally cannot do that. Lucy, don't start whimpering now, Lucy. I'm in a video. Don't do this to me, Lucy. So again, that's my argument about censorship. I mean, censorship and piracy. It's like piracy seems to be the only way to counteract this thing, this idea of censoring text, censoring literature, censoring video games, censoring movies, going around localizers. It's because, I don't like being treated like I'm 5. Like, I like to consider myself a grown-ass adult who can make whatever decision I want about whatever things I consume. And I don't need someone being like, oh, hold on, you can't watch this because this has this, that, and the other. Here, let me shove this in your face. Oh, you have a problem with this? Well, fuck you. It's like, no, I'm going to take my money elsewhere then. Kiss my ass. And I think most people think this way. It's just, most people either are like, whatever, don't care, or most people just accept it, or most people are, just don't want to get into the whole spotlight of cancellation, but I do believe this is a problem, and I do believe censorship and mass censorship is the problem, and unfortunately, piracy's the solution. Again, I don't want this to be the case. I don't want piracy to be the only way to counteract these things, but like, what other alternative? Oh, you just consume the bullshit that they take away. So you consume an inferior product to the original because they treat you like you're five and can't make decisions for yourself. Man, fuck that. But I don't know, man. That's all I gotta say about. I find it kind of funny that it's showing shit like this. That was my dryer because the online. I think there's a commercial against piracy that said, "Oh, you wouldn't pirate a car, so don't pirate a movie." It's like, bro, what the fuck? I know whole European countries that wouldn't even have an IT sector if it wasn't for piracy. Unfortunately, it's something that happens, and again, it's a force of nature. There's nothing you can really do about it. The best thing you can do is fight piracy unilaterally. Make a game or a product as accessible, make it as cheap, right? And I'm not talking accessibility. I'm not talking about like in the fucking easy mode. I'm talking having all the translations, having all like remote accessibility or keyboard accessibility, like right, having it available in as many countries as possible, putting it on a site like Steam if you're making a video game, which has the most traffic of consumers that play video computer games. Like, this is what I mean. Like, don't put it on like Epic Game Store just because they shell out a shit ton of money to have it on for a year. Like, this is what I mean by accessible, right? True accessibility. Like, as in getting it into people's hands as easily as possible. Not making the game as easy as possible. But yeah, I mean, that's all I gotta say about this. See ya.